Hey, what's up? It's your old pal, Mr. Cook, and we are going to work on the Unit 3 test review. We're going to do the whole thing. I'm going to break it up into the different sections and do a video for each of those and tell you where each of these are found in the packet that we've already worked on, so you can, watch more examples from the previous videos on topics that you didn't understand. So we're going to start off with simplify each and state the excluded values. So you might remember some of that from 3.1. We did a ton of these problems, so if you needed some additional help, check that video out. So these ones are from 3.1. So here's how we do these. We factor the top, we factor the bottom, we list the excluded values, and then simplify it afterwards. So factor first, that's the first step. So for p squared plus 9p plus 20, we need to find numbers that multiply together to be 20 and add together to be 9. Those two numbers are 4 and 5. So we end up with the following. We have p plus 4 in the top, and then in the bottom that turns into p plus 4 and p plus 5. So from here we can find the excluded values. What excluded values are, if you remember, is any time that the domain has a restriction or if it breaks any math rules. And the math rules that it could possibly break is if each of these factors or any of these factors equals 0. So all we have to do is just take both of the factors, p plus 4 and p plus 5, and make sure that they cannot be equal to 0. So if I do that, if I subtract 4 from both sides here, I get p cannot be equal to -4, so that's one of my excluded values. And then if I solve for p over here, if I subtract 5, I get p cannot be equal to -5. That's my other excluded value. Now that we found the excluded values, let's simplify it, because that should always come after you find the excluded values. So I notice that I have a p plus 4 in the top and the bottom, so those two cancel out, leaving just a 1 in the top and then a p plus 5 in the bottom. That is my simplified expression, and I'm done with number 1. All right, now let's move on to number 2. Let's simplify this as much as possible and factor it. So factoring, 10 and 4 both divisible by 2, so I get 2 times parentheses 5k plus 2, yeah, because this divided by 2 is 5k, this divided by 2 is 2, all over 18. Okay, so it's factored. Now let's go ahead and find the excluded values. And it's really nice because there's no variables in the denominators. When there's no variables in the denominator, and as long as the denominator is not already 0, then that means that it's impossible for it to become 0. So in this case, there are no excluded values on this particular problem, so none there. Now let's simplify it. So 2 and 18 are both divisible by 2, so this becomes a 1, this becomes a 9. So we have 1 times 5k plus 2, in other words 5k plus 2, over, and then 18, it turns into a 9, so over 9. There's our simplified expression, there's our excluded values, and we are done with simplify and get the excluded value.